What is going on, everybody? Good morning.
Hey, everybody.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
However you're spending your day, wherever you're spending your day.
How you doing, bro?
Hopefully it's going well. Not too bad. Nice little long weekend. Long weekend from work, but also a long weekend of football.
There you go.
First ever Super Wildcard Weekend.
A lot of fun games.
Yeah, a little bit. The Bengals game, the first game on the slate was pretty entertaining. Bengals Raiders. The Bills boat raced the Patriots. That was fun in a different type of way.
Enjoyable.
Yeah. Blowouts are fun when it involves a team like the Patriots. Sorry, Patriots fans, but not actually.
No, not really. I'm not.
The Eagles Bucks game was not really competitive.
Yeah, sorry about that one, man.
How much could we possibly expect from this Eagles team? But
you got some important takeaways from that game. I feel like specifically as an Eagles fan, you got real questions about whether or not Jalen Hurts can be the guy moving forward.
There are some things for the offseason for the Eagles to figure out, but that game wasn't particularly close. Wasn't totally a surprise, but obviously still kind of disappointing. But it is what it is. The result was not totally unexpected. What we did expect, the 49ers would upset the Cowboys, and that did happen in very exciting fashion.
We did speculate on that and predict that one. So
speculated that the 49ers were in a good spot to upset the Cowboys, and that they did. Questionable decisions for the Cowboys throughout that game, and their end of game management of the situation just totally deteriorated, and they're sitting at home just like the rest of us now. The 49ers move on to Green Bay. And then the Chiefs game, well, that was the Chiefs boat raced the Steelers. It took them a little while to get going.
The Steelers defense made it interesting in the beginning of the game.
Made it a game for a short while.
But yeah. I mean, if I felt like that was another one of those games where it was over by halftime, but it was still just fun to see the Chiefs on firing on all cylinders, which is something we really haven't seen until very recently with the Chiefs this year.
They've been inconsistent.
We're seeing playoff Mahomes. We're seeing playoff Allen. So even these blowouts, they're still fun to watch.
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, it's still football, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people have skin in the game, whether you play DFS or if you had any contests or you did any drafts this weekend. So if you did any of that, let us know how you did. If you were able to come out with any winnings. I feel like I had a bad week with like DFS suggestions, and I've caveated multiple times. I don't consider myself a DFS expert, not quite yet. But just trying to analyze the situation. I mean, it changes in the playoffs.
Yeah,
the
that'll
game
come in 2023.
Itself changes.
We got to get a year under our feet of it.
Yeah, the game itself changes in the playoffs, and sometimes the things that you try to evaluate are just not a factor the way that you maybe expect them to. So it's just a totally different animal. That said, I did say I like Deontay Johnson this week, and he scored a touchdown. So there you go. Just talking about the Chiefs-Steelers game.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. The Chiefs and the Bills, that's a hell of a matchup. And then on Monday night, honestly, that game was a snooze fest by halftime. maybe even before that. The Cardinals were not ready for
Cam Akers is back. Cam Akers is back. Like
Akers
back.
is back. That's the huge. That's the huge news, and maybe we can start there a little bit as part of our segue to some dynasty talk that we want to get to today. But Cam Akers, he got minimal spot work, right, in week 18, 5 touches or whatever,
and it did average basically like 1 yard per carry.
Right, it was very
yo, dirtbag, like, what's going on?
Type of thing.
Niners Bills Super Bowl. I would love that because I got some Niners friends here in Philly, so it would be that would be a lot of fun. That would be a lot of fun.
Could happen. I mean, the Bills had,
and honestly, I would like that matchup.
The Bills had a perfect game on offense against the Patriots. Like, they had a game on offense that
7
has
for 7
statistically
touchdown scoring drives. Yep.
Never happened before. That has never happened before in the history of logging
in like 0-degree weather
in the NFL. Right. They trounced the Patriots. I thought the Patriots would maybe keep it a game for a little while. On the first drive, Mac Jones looked competent. Micah Hyde made a phenomenal play for an interception, and pretty much like the game was over. That was that. It was.
The Patriots were talking about Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, man. I was talking about him.
Yeah, they showed out. Micah Hyde is definitely is very good. He's very, very good. Yes. And he made a phenomenal play. One of the best plays for an interception I have to imagine I've ever seen. And
especially
it was over from that point. Yep. Yeah, right. Like ranging over from another spot on the field. The ball was a pretty good ball too by Mac Jones. If he gets it a little further out in front, it might be a touchdown for the Patriots. But it wasn't a bad ball. It was just a great play, and it was over from that point. So the Bills are looking toughest test. They're playing the Chiefs in
their toughest test. They have built their team, built their defense to match up against the Chiefs. I've talked about this. I talked about this last stream. That's why the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans and the Steelers beat the Bills this year, because they're not built to stop the run. They're built to stop the pass in Mahomes once they reach the playoffs, which is I think points to why I know the Chiefs were in a slump, but the Bills, I think, didn't they put up 40 on them, on the Chiefs? In like week 4
in their house.
Yeah. Yep. So it's going to be another matchup. There's going to be a lot of fireworks. I do think the Bills match up very well with the Chiefs.
This could be the game of the season.
And the Bengals, for what that's worth, if the Bengals make it through to the next round, I feel pretty good about matching up against the Bengals as well, because again, it's
throw the ball well.
Air raid team. Lockdown.
There
you go. I think so too, dirtbag.
By the way, if we're lagging a little bit, I'm seeing we're maybe having some connection issues, so hopefully that's not the case for everybody. Internet's having some issues, and John is a little under the weather today. He won't say it, but I'll say it. To be drafted in the 2022 draft. So you can absolutely look forward to that as well.
Yeah,
but going back to Cam
Hall
Akers,
out there, we got a video on Isaiah Spiller out there
and contributing heavily. Sorry,
I was talking over you while the lag was going on. We're talking about Cam Akers.
Yeah. So with Cam Akers, I guess decent segue for just kind of 2022 conversation. I mean, this is like the best development from an Achilles injury you can possibly ask for that we've probably ever seen. This makes what happens with this Rams backfield very interesting, because there's going to be domino effects here, because Darrell Henderson is still in the mix. They drafted him 3 years ago, so that he does have one more year of eligibility, one more year on his rookie deal, and then I believe Sony Michel is an unrestricted free agent.
Yes.
So something tells me, not something. This is, I think it's kind of fair to speculate. Sony Michel probably won't be back. Not with the Rams. This will be they drafted Cam Akers, and Cam Akers came back last night in a big way. And as long as he gets through their postseason run, okay, Cam Akers is the guy.
Yeah.
Next year.
Yes.
And I think we'll ultimately go back to being.
Game, I mean, Cam Akers coming off the injury in his second game looked like the more explosive running back when paired next to Sony Michel. Yeah, Sony Michel was grinding out those tough yards, but Cam Akers looked better than him and had more explosive plays than he did. So.
Yep. Sony had a nice run the first run of the game, and then that was just kind of it.
Yep.
So Sony's probably going to move on. Where he ends up, who knows? I mean, he's a 27-year-old back with some known knee issues.
A few of these other running backs because I think where he goes plays into that. Our speculation on him plays into that. We got Melvin Gordon, who's rumored to stay in Denver.
Gordon's a free agent.
I could honestly see Sony Michel being a Melvin Gordon replacement in Denver if they wanted to go a different way, get a little bit younger.
A little bit cheaper.
Bit cheaper too, right? Which might be what they want to do if they want to go out and pay for one of those high-priced quarterbacks. But I could also see Melvin Gordon just ringing up in Denver and him sticking on the same running back core with Javonte Williams for another year. But we got Leonard Fournette, who I expect to stay in Tampa. We got Rashad Penny, who I expect to stay in Seattle.
Penny will stay in Seattle.
James Conner, who I think is going to get re-upped by Arizona because the only back that's signed after this season is Eno Benjamin, and that's just I think they go out and re-sign James Conner.
There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way. Yeah, they
no
can't. They can't. They can't go into the season with Eno Benjamin as their top guy. Maybe the Cardinals are candidates to draft a back.
They could be.
The Cardinals could be a candidate to draft somebody.
Honestly, the guy that I am in the process of doing a profile on, Kyren Williams, could be a good back for them to get. He is not one of the top 3 backs in this class by the consensus. He's usually ranked behind Breece Hall, Isaiah Spiller, Kenneth Walker. He's usually 4th or 5th, but he comps to Elijah Mitchell to me. If he hits his ceiling athletically at the combine, he comps to Elijah Mitchell for me. Same BMI. Their college target share is pretty much the same. They're both 5'9", 195 pounds. If Kyren Williams, I think he profiles Elijah Mitchell.
So does that mean Elijah Mitchell was a 6th round pick?
Right.
If Williams goes in a similar area,
I think he will too, because I mean we've seen the devaluation of running backs. We've seen the 4th ranked running back in the class drop to the 4th, 5th, 6th round.
Fourth round, yeah.
Kenny Gainwell was thought to be by many to be the 4th best running back in the class last year. He was drafted in the 4th round, correct?
I think people had Trey Sermon over Kenny Gainwell in their evaluations last year.
Yeah, but he was still up there for a lot of people.
Yeah, he was in the top 5 for most of the of like the off season. Gainwell was a top 5 running back for dynasty purposes. Fell to I think he fell to the 5th round.
The 5th round. There you go. So I think that Kyren Williams could be in that same spot. He could, because he's somewhere a little bit smaller. Yeah. He doesn't have that RB1 build, so he might fall a little bit in the draft. We don't know how he's going to test athletically. Sorry, but I think he would be an interesting back in that backfield.
There you go. I mean, and in the air raid offense, there's plenty of opportunities for production. I mean, James Conner resurrected his career a little bit in Arizona.
Yep.
So, and there's work to be had. Chase Edmonds missed a lot of time this year due to injury. I don't think they want to give all that work to one guy again. I know James Conner was fantastic this year and he was excellent, efficiently scoring touchdowns. That doesn't carry over year. Not trying to take anything away from James Conner's 2021. I would just have some pause that he duplicates those numbers in 2022. And if they were to draft a running back, which might make sense.
Speaking of Arizona, they're losing Christian Kirk. They're losing James Conner. As of right now, James Conner and Chase Edmonds.
As of right now, they're
Zach
losing
Ertz.
Because of free agency. They could come back. Like Christian Kirk could
How are
come
you
back.
feeling about this offense? Do you think they pick up another star wide receiver here too? Because they're going to be down to a 30
for Rondale Moore.
How old is DeAndre Hopkins?
He'll be 30.
Right. So a 30-year-old DeAndre Hopkins, well, not over the hill by any means, and that's not like the death knell for wide receivers. That is when they start to decline, and we saw him last year not play a full season.
Couldn't stay healthy. The injuries finally caught up to him.
Right. So what do you think about this Cardinals offense? Do you think they go out and get a replacement for Christian Kirk? Do you think they elevate Rondale Moore and try to bring in another young wide receiver?
I gotta think they prioritize.
Are you investing in Kyler Murray next year? Because he'll probably be on a little bit of a discount.
Yeah, I think. I have a hunch they'll prioritize bringing Christian Kirk back. He has been good for that offense. He has been rock solidly consistent. And I feel like very quietly he has done it. I think he's a good fit for that offense. You already just mentioned DeAndre Hopkins is 30 and battled injuries this year. Ultimately went from being questionable every week to having to miss the rest of the season. This was I don't think he played after week 11 or 12. Did he play after the bye week? He might have played 1 week and then was shut down maybe. I mean, yeah, so you have that situation. You have AJ Green, who I believe is unrestricted as well this year, who is obviously close to the end. And you have Rondale Moore, who you drafted in the second round, and he looked like a player early in the season, but obviously things change and happen quickly for rookies. He wasn't much of a factor for most of the season. We were predicting that AJ Green, Rondale Moore.
We were predicting that AJ Green would fade at some point and not be so involved in the offense.
Yeah, that didn't
after a certain point in the season, and that never happened. And Rondale Moore never got the run that we expected he would eventually get. We expected him to kind of
a year under his belt.
What happened to Amon-Ra St. Brown, I was kind of expecting to happen to Rondale Moore.
Thought it would happen.
Not be really involved until halfway through the season, where his talent's undeniable and they can't keep him off the field. And
they also traded for Zach Ertz, which probably took a bunch of intermediate short stuff away. They had Max Williams prior to the Ertz trade, him going down.
Yeah, but Zach Ertz commanded a little bit more of a target share once he got there than Max Williams had before.
Which could have impacted Rondale Moore's touches and looks around the line of scrimmage. So this offense could be in a little bit of flux this year. But they still have a 24-year-old franchise quarterback in Kyler, who I know had a bad game Monday night against the Rams. He wasn't good. The Cardinals in general weren't good, but Kyler himself wasn't good. I'm not selling Kyler Murray after last night.
No, nor should you.
Line about this offense any given year.
But the general consensus on him will take a hit as a result of this game, just because that's human psychology.
It's right. It's the most recent thing that you've seen, and it was in a playoff game, and he didn't play well. So yes, public perception is going to be down on Kyler in the coming months. So if you play any best, actually Kyler might be a buy, a buy low relative to his asking price. Right, 24 years old.
Yep.
Just because he's a runner, I'm not afraid of his longevity when he's 24. not there. Good piece for this offense. I think
as
he
it
has some pretty
stands
good
right now, they
chemistry
only
with
have
Kyler Murray.
16 million cap space.
So
that's enough to sign a wide receiver like Christian
yeah,
Kirk, but
who can't possibly try to command top dollar.
Right.
Is he a little bit more intriguing than some of the options, the other free agent options? Yeah, sure. Based on age, injury history, all of that stuff, he's a little bit more appealing than say Will Fuller, Jamison Crowder, T.Y. Hilton, Emmanuel Sanders, Keelan Cole. I could keep going.
Right.
But I think Arizona, if they want to run a bunch of 4 receiver sets, if they want to go 4 wide, if they want to run the air raid offense, Christian Kirk has been a pretty good part of that, pretty successful part of that offense. So I feel like he could come back. They may, they'll probably draft a receiver. The receivers every class, every year these days, it's like there's good receivers every year. That's where the game has gone. The college game has not totally caught up to the NFL as far as like the ability to execute plays, but they're throwing the ball more and receivers are better now. You see it coming in. There's more polished receivers. There's more receivers who know what they're doing. They're running the route tree. They are more well equipped to handle at least being somewhat of a factor on their team's offense, even as a rookie. We're seeing it more and more. So they should be able to draft a guy. There should be a spot in the draft where Arizona feels comfortable saying, okay, this makes sense to take a wide receiver here. They are not in a position to draft, say, like a Treylon Burks, but he would be a perfect complement to go on the outside and be a big body for Kyler, like Hopkins, like AJ Green. He would be a complement to like a Christian Kirk. Again, something tells me Burks won't be there when Arizona drafts in the first round.
But Drake London might.
Drake, okay, so there you go. That's something that they could explore in the second round. So that's something that they could do. Overall, I think this offense will be okay, despite the vibes that people probably have coming out of that game last night. AJ Green, I expect to move on. There's a lot of veteran receivers, and about the free agent class this year in 2022, outside of the top names, Devontae Adams, Chris Godwin, Mike Williams, to my point about the receivers being better and better as they enter the draft, we're not going to see it to the same extreme as running backs, but these veteran receivers, I'm telling you, they're going to have a harder time getting a contract that they want, getting the money that they think they probably are deserving of getting. But like, it's becoming, I don't want to say easy, but there's more talent, more NFL ready talent than, each year now with these receivers.
Well, it seems like every single one of these wide receivers on this list that I'm looking at here outside of Devontae Adams has something wrong with them coming into the offseason. Chris Godwin,
injuries or age.
Mike Williams, age, durability concerns whether or not he can be a wide receiver one. Allen Robinson, same deal. Michael Gallup, injured. But then you got Juju Smith-Schuster coming off an injury. Didn't look great in the Steelers game coming back. Hasn't been great for the past 2 seasons. DJ Chark coming off an injury. Hasn't looked great over the past 2 seasons. Cordarrelle Patterson, we expect him to re-up with Atlanta, but we're not sure how effective he's going to be because really last 5 to 6 games of the year didn't look great. Calvin Ridley, complete question mark. At this point, we talked a lot about him last year. Trade candidate, not a free agent, but definitely looks like he's going to be moving on from Atlanta.
Sounds like he is a prime candidate to move to switch teams in a trade.
But he's a little bit of a question mark. He comes with these question marks. Every single wide receiver outside of Devontae Adams comes with injury concerns or is a question mark for some reason. So we might see an emphasis on these wide receivers coming out of the draft, to your point.
Yeah, I would expect. I think that's going to just continue to happen with each year. These receivers are going to continue to be good. There's going to be plenty of options for teams to choose from. It's going to push these guys who are 29, 30, 31 years old, with a bit of an injury history. Unless you're an absolute superstar, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough finding work. I think Allen Robinson finds work. I think somebody,
I think all these guys
takes a chance on Will Fuller. It's just going to be like a reduced salary.
I don't know, man. Will Fuller might be he might be somebody who might get picked up 3 weeks into the year after an injury happens. I don't know if he's somebody that teams are going to be going after in the off season, just because we don't really know what's going on there. I'm sure NFL teams know a little bit more than we do.
Yeah.
But he doesn't strike me as the type, the free agent that gets picked up in the off season. He strikes me as okay, we need a guy to fill in here. He looks like he's back to being reliable to a certain extent. Now we'll bring him in because blank got injured.
Yeah, I mean, he's still only 28, so if I can get away with like a 1-year, $5 million offer, something like that, I might take that shot if I'm a team and I could use a wide receiver.
And risk him just sitting out the entire year?
And you know what, you know a little bit more about what you're getting into this year, because 2021 was the first time that happened with him. So, you do your due diligence, you run your physicals, you do your homework, you see where's his head at? Does he want to play? And again, we don't know all the details about why Will Fuller ultimately ended up not playing almost at all this year. Very close to being a no-show, a complete no-show in 2021. I think he played one game.
Early on?
And didn't. Yeah, early on. I think so. I thought he played one game, and then it was back on IR.
He was suspended for a game.
Suspended for game one, and then he was dealing with an injury. The point is, I would be willing to take a shot after, if I do my homework and it's like, okay, he's healthy, he's saying he wants to play, here's a low ball offer with like no risk behind it. He played 2 games. There you go. How about that? He played 2 games. Week 3, he had 3 catches for 20 yards. Week 4, he had 1 catch for 6 yards, and that was that. But his landing spot is definitely something that is, if it's a wide receiver needy team and they feel like they could use a burner, that's what he is. Somebody will give him a shot. But there's a lot of names on this list where it's like, it doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence. After Adams, Godwin, and Mike Williams, it's like,
Mike Williams
might take a shot.
Doesn't inspire a ton of confidence, I have to say. For me, it kind of ends at Devontae Adams, Chris Godwin.
First half of the season.
I know he had a monster first half of the season, but then he turned into Mike Williams again. So, and he did it earlier than Cordarrelle Patterson turned back into Cordarrelle Patterson. So I think there are a lot of question marks on Mike Williams, and I think how much of Mike Williams' explosion in the early part of the year had to do with them not using Keenan Allen as much. And had to do with him being uninjured, because he always picks up an injury because of how physical he plays.
And also Justin Herbert just being awesome.
Right. Factor in that too. He's
Mike Williams
not in
gone.
That, like Devontae Adams, go.
No,
Scott Godwin, really good wide receiver, can be a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. Mike Williams, he's the type of wide receiver that could be a wide receiver 1 for a 6-game stretch, and then he fades because he's just not a wide receiver 1.
Right.
Allen Robinson is a guy that I am intrigued by.
Somebody will give him a chance, though, but he moves on. I think.
Well, just looking in Dynasty, we always were wary of wide receivers that are old. And Allen Robinson, I feel like since he's been in the league for so long, he's been in the league since 2014. But he's not as old as a lot of the guys from that 2014 class. He came into the league at 21 years old. He's only 28 right now.
He still had ideas. In theory, he should have at least 2 years left of high-end play.
Right. He just needs to go to a better situation. Michael Gallup, in his first year in the league, I believe it was his first year in the league, he put up 1,000 receptions and 8 touchdowns. And then the team went away from using him like a wide receiver 2 on the team and treated him like a wide receiver 3 for the rest of the time. and then it looked like he was getting
There
a
you
ton of
go.
work last year, or the year before in 2020, and then Dak got hurt. So he wasn't able to pick up a ton of fantasy points for your team. And then this year, injured. CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper ahead of him. Dalton Schultz being involved a ton. His value's fallen, and now he got injured. But he can perform like a. I don't know if he can be a wide receiver 1 for a team. Do you think Michael Gallup can be a wide receiver 1, or do you think? I think he can be a wide receiver 2 for a team, and be a really good wide receiver 2. I would love to see him go to the Chiefs. I think him going to the Chiefs, him going and filling the Godwin role for the Bucks. Those
I don't know that he can.
situations.
I don't know that he can directly do that.
What's that?
I'm not sure that he could directly fill the role of like a Godwin.
I mean, theoretically, using him in the role in that offense, not filling the role, not being exactly Godwin. He's not Godwin, but filling that role for a team, being the number 2 receiver.
Yeah, I think he
in
can
Tampa
do
Bay,
that.
being the number 2 receiver in Kansas City. We talked a lot about the because I talk a lot about the Bills being the number 2 receiver to a Stephon Diggs next year once they kick out Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders.
As far as
the stream
Gallup,
just restarted completely.
did it restart?
Sorry guys.
Oh no,
Did it?
it looks like it did freeze for me.
Well, all right. Let's keep.
Hang
let's
on,
keep
let me see if
moving
let me see if I'm still seeing it. We're see if we can ride this wave. Hopefully this will work. Oh man.
Yeah.
Michael Gallup. I
think it could
I
be a wide
had-
receiver 2 for your fantasy team next year, depending on where he goes.
okay. I thought you meant for like an NFL. There are landing spots where it could happen. Atlanta's not a bad call.
Jacksonville.
The Colts could use a second wide receiver. The
Yeah, but
Titans
again, then
could
he's
use a
playing
second wide
Then he's
receiver.
going to be the second wide receiver.
Well, yeah.
To my point.
Jacksonville, yeah, I think he could be a wide receiver 1. I think he could be his team's wide receiver 1 there.
Only in 2 places, and I mean that. I think he ends up playing second fiddle to somebody else, but still being a fantasy wide receiver 2, a la T. Higgins.
He'd be the Giants' wide receiver 1.
Not as good as T. Higgins, but he to that. You know what I'm describing here. Somebody where there is a better wide receiver on the team, but it doesn't stop Michael Gallup from putting up wide receiver 2 numbers.
Does he become a full-time starter on the outside as long as you don't have 2 guys like CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper directly ahead of him?
And I think there are very few places in the NFL that he would go where he would have that
unless he
problem.
re-upped with Dallas. If Dallas cuts Amari Cooper, they doesn't.
Okay.
They
Well, yeah, that could be a possibility, but I don't.
That's a
but
possibility.
Then he wouldn't be stuck behind 2 people. He'd just be stuck. He'd be on the field with one other person ahead of him.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna take. I mean, he's in a weird spot because his injury happened late. His offseason starts now. His contract is probably gonna reflect the injury that he sustained again late in the season. I don't think we're gonna have that answer until 2020 for a player to. Not in every situation. Obviously, each situation is different. Every scenario is different. No 2 people have the same reaction to the same injury. Your body heals differently from other people, all that. Multi-month, say, process of getting back to where you were prior to the injury. So it might not be until 2023 until we see Michael Gallup putting up wide receiver 2 numbers again. When you suffer an ACL injury, it's not the first year back. It's a lot of times it's the second year back.
At which point he'll be 28.
which is not old. So he will still has a chance for a couple of years of some strong
that
production.
hurts for Dynasty. That does
For
hurt.
Dynasty, that hurts. But at the same time, I'm not selling
I traded
Michael
for
Gallup.
him when he was 25, and now I'm gonna have to wait until he's 28 to use him as intended.
That's the game we play. That for sure. That's the game we play. But also, I'm not advocating don't sell Michael Gallup because you're selling him at his lowest point. His future is uncertain and he's hurt right now. You're just not. People are going to be interested in Michael Gallup on the trade.
I'm not advocating selling Michael Gallup. I'm advocating buying Michael Gallup because I don't think you have to.
I would buy him too.
Prices.
I would.
It just stinks that you might have to wait until 2023 to be able to utilize him as you want to. But we got some other guys who've fallen from grace here. Juju Smith-Schuster, DJ Chark. And we've both speculated that Jarvis Landry is going to be on the outs in Cleveland.
Jarvis Landry is going to get cut by Cleveland. I would say that is the most likely cut that is easiest to predict.
I think they can save like 12 mil against the cap by cutting Jarvis Landry.
I was going to say, I think it's over 10. It's over 10 million. Yeah. He's not a $13 million per year player anymore, as much as I like Jarvis Landry.
They've drafted Anthony Schwartz, I believe, in the 3rd round last year, and Donovan Peoples-Jones is there from the year before. So, they have the pieces to replace him with already in the offense. They might go out and draft another wide receiver in this year's draft just to replace him in 3 wide sets. Not that they ever run 3 wide sets, but
they just need a quarterback. That's all. Yeah. But anyway, the wide receivers who are falling off. I think you were making a point.
Yeah, they're all outside. Schuster, Smith-Schuster, and Landry are both
and Shark
gadget pickup, a bunch of receptions, not a ton of yards guys. See Jarvis Landry going to the Bills, being Cole Beasley replacement for another 3 years. I would like that. But I could. Juju Smith-Schuster is only 25 years old, coming off an injury, should be 100% healthy.
He's not old at all.
Going into next year, he had concerns coming into the game he just played, but he wanted to play the last game with Ben Roethlisberger. I get it.
Yeah.
But
gotta give him credit for that.
I think he's worth the price because we've seen an elite year from Juju Smith-Schuster when everything went right, and he's only 25 years old.
You mean an NFL team giving him a contract?
Well, yeah, he's definitely getting a contract. He's going to be playing more in the NFL.
Yeah.
But I'm saying for your fantasy team, I think the price that you got to pay to get Juju Smith-Schuster as a 25-year-old wide receiver in Dynasty, who at one point in time, you're not paying for N'Keal Harry, and I feel like he almost has N'Keal Harry level draft. That's what he's going to cost you. But N'Keal Harry hasn't done anything. He just has that first-round draft capital. Almost the same age, whereas Juju Smith-Schuster, he's had a borderline wide receiver 1 season, if not a wide receiver 1 season.
He's had wide receiver 1 seasons,
right?
Yeah. First 2 years of his career.
He's 25, and we talk a lot about Ben Roethlisberger, and I heard it mentioned by somebody just a few days ago that every Steelers wide receiver's dynasty value has jumped now that Ben Roethlisberger is out of Pittsburgh, not fallen.
Yeah.
We look, but Juju Smith-Schuster's had to play 2 seasons with either not Ben Roethlisberger or a bad Ben Roethlisberger, so bad to the point where you'd rather pretty much anybody else be playing for a fantasy perspective.
Pretty much, yeah.
I just think, if you got to throw...
And get him for that, yes, that's absolutely worth doing.
Do you think anybody's going to be asking for much more than that?
If I were selling Juju, I wouldn't sell him for 2/3.
Well, yeah, we wouldn't, but do you think most people would be selling Juju for 2/3?
They might. I might wait until closer to the draft if you can if the person who has Juju is maybe looking for some draft capital and is looking to just acquire a couple of picks. That's a type of deal you can offer when it's April. Like I would wait until April for that. Let the draft picks gain a little bit of value. This was what happens. Draft picks don't have they have less value now than they do 2 months ago, and that's just because we haven't reached the draft yet. Like that's literally all it is. So if you can acquire, like you said, a 25-year-old wide receiver,
said, like Michael Thomas too, he's out there. Like,
yeah.
Continue.
But I mean, it's 25-year-old wide receiver. There are question marks about how much of those first 2 seasons can Juju replicate, and of course, his future's uncertain. Where is he going to land? Will he be his team's third option? So that's kind of the selling point that you could make to the, I don't know what's going to happen with Juju. Like, I like his talent, but there's a lot of questions. That being said, I'll give you a couple of thirds for him. If you can swing that deal, yeah, I would absolutely do that. Juju is somebody who I would say is worth a speculative buy. That's kind of the selling point you can make for a lot of these free agent wide receivers. Well, you don't know where their landing spot's going to be. I don't know who's going to be throwing them the ball.
Chark. We just mentioned DJ Chark in the
you should be able to get him for
Smith-Schuster Landry conversation. Yeah, I mean, you should be able to get DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault for pennies. But speaking of DJ Chark, do you think he can rekindle his value going somewhere and being the wide receiver 2 somewhere? Like, I mean, we talked. Indianapolis, I think, would be a great place for him because he goes and replaces
that would be a good spot.
Speedster T.Y. Hilton,
Tennessee,
and he can just go routes, air it out, and give Carson Wentz somebody.
Blake Bortles that year. I mean, come on.
No, it was Gardner Minshew.
It was okay. That's right. It was
Minshew.
The
beginning of Minshew mania. Yep.
That he had, and Minshew had a decent season his rookie year. That being said, there are teams out there with better quarterbacks than Gardner Minshew. So, yeah, if Chark finds the right landing spot, of course, he's got to stay. I mean, that's his thing. He's got to stay healthy. He's officially a bit of an injury risk, and there's no such thing. I've been told by the physical therapist that I follow on Twitter that there's no such thing as injury prone. So it's like, okay, that's something I'm trying to adapt my brain to, that mindset. Like any player can get injured at any time. There's no
in
such
a vacuum,
thing as,
but with these soft tissue injuries that he seemingly picks up all the time, there is a predictability to it.
They're easier to reoccur. Yeah,
they're
it's easier for them to happen again.
I mean, we talked a lot about coming into this season about DJ Chark not applying himself, not doing all the right nutritional things and stuff. And for athletes this fine-tuned, that plays into it to a certain extent. And I'm not a doctor, but I mean, we could be seeing that play out with DJ Chark, is all I'm saying. But I would love to see DJ Chark go, again, I'm going to say it, to the Bills. Be James Brown to Stephon Diggs that one year when they had both of them out there and James Brown was still, or John Brown, not James Brown. I love James Brown. R.I.P. James Brown. John Brown.
James Brown's running go routes.
Smokey Brown is just who I meant. But
there you go.
That's an option. That's a element that's been missing from the Bills game, is that explosive off the top guy. Emmanuel Sanders has not been that
this year.
So they could replicate that with DJ Chark. I think DJ Chark would be an interesting.
The roll of the dice. It's low risk. You sign him for a 1-year deal. It's $5 million. If it doesn't work out, you just move on next year to somebody else.
The Saints need wide receivers. They got Marquez Callaway and nobody else. And they have the most cap. They have the least cap space in the NFL right now. They have negative $64 million in cap space going into next year. So go out and buy Adam Troutman, because they're not going to be able to afford anybody. Go out and buy Adam Troutman. Yeah,
buy Adam Troutman for sure.
Buy Tony Jones Jr. because they're not going to be able to re-sign Mark Ingram.
You might as well buy Callaway if you can.
Yeah.
There's not significant changes that team can theoretically make.
No.
But again, these are the types of teams where some of these free agent wide receivers who are a little older, and therefore it's going to be a little harder for them to find that contract that they're looking for. These are the types of scenarios that they could find themselves in. A team is willing to give them a shot. It's not going to be as much money as they thought they should get or want. But if they want to keep playing, if they want to get another opportunity to play in the NFL, this is the type of contract that they might end up with. And you're talking about a situation where it's like somebody's got to win a job down there.
The one who's interesting to me, though, is Odell Beckham Jr. because I feel like he is the type of guy who can literally pick where he wants to go.
Yeah, what's Robert Woods' contract?
Robert Woods is there for a while, and they can't get rid of him. Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods got read up. Like I feel like it was in last offseason. So they're not moving on from either of them. I think Odell was just strictly a 1-year buy, along with Von Miller. Same thing.
I think Odell will wait and see what happens with the quarterbacks and then
because the Rams have negative $4 million in cap space coming into next year. So I mean they're gonna have to move stuff around just to be able to fill out their roster because they are gonna be losing some guys.
So Odell's not likely to return to the Rams.
Cap space to sign him. They have 27 mil projected in cap space next year. He could go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have $18 million in cap space next year. I feel like he's going to go to one of those kind of teams, a team where it's you got a shot to be in the play. You got a really good shot to be in the playoffs, like the Rams. Mm-hmm. There were rumors that he would be
catch passes from a good quarterback. Yeah.
Right. I think that's in play for him. I mean, the Packers were on the table for him. Remember that? Before he got signed by the Rams, everybody was pointing to the Packers, and he came out and said that he didn't choose the Pack. He chose the Rams because the Packers lowballed him a little bit, apparently. But where Odell's gonna end up is gonna be interesting. I feel like he ends up in Tampa Bay, Kansas City. Mm-hmm. It would be fun to see him on the Chargers opposite Keenan Allen if he replaced Mike Williams.
He could just stay in LA, go to the other team.
Right. If the Bengals wanted to go 4 deep at dope wide receiver, go get Odell too.
I think that their resources
more
are set
playmakers
at wide
do
receiver.
Do it. Just
their resources are set at wide receiver. That's a team that's probably not drafting a wide receiver this year in 2022. No. I got to imagine.
I think they might draft it. They have a good shot to draft a tight end. CJ Uzomah is a free agent. We haven't gotten into the free agent tight ends at all yet. And while the class isn't much to speak of, you got Mike.
There's
Gesicki,
not much to talk
Zach
about
Ertz,
this free
CJ
agent
Uzomah,
class.
Robert Tonyan. I do think there is. You got to take away. There's some takeaway here. First off, Robert Tonyan, wherever he goes, I believe he had an RAS of 9 or close to it. I like him wherever he goes. I like him most of all if he stays with Rodgers because he was a tight end 1 with Rodgers. He was the tight end 3.
I'm less enthused.
No, I think he stays. I didn't mention him. He's not going to play with anybody.
He either stays in Tampa. He will retire when Brady retires.
He's not going to play with anybody outside of Tom Brady.
Nah.
But one guy that is interesting to me, just in the ripple effect conversation, CJ Uzomah is going to be a free agent in this offseason.
Yeah, he had a really nice day against the Raiders.
Really nice year. Multiple 2-touchdown games.
He had a good year. He had a pretty good season.
Right. I'm not
pretty
sure.
Pretty reliable season.
The Bengals re-sign him. They do have $55 million in cap space, so they have enough of.
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals are going to try to keep as much cap flexibility as they can because the Burrow contract is coming.
Right, but if they pick up CJ Uzomah on a 2-year deal that ends right when Burrow's about to be paid his contract, I feel like that makes sense. So I could see CJ Uzomah coming back. But Drew Sample is an interesting guy for me because he is a young tight end with. I mean, he played in a feature role in his rookie season, and he looked over his head. But I mean, he got that work on his resume. He's now a third-year player. RAS above 9. So check out Drew Sample. He's probably free in your Dynasty leagues. But, yo, Moon, what's going on? Big Pun, what's going on? Mock draft.
Issues. I think we're a little laggy.
There will be some mock draft stuff for fantasy next season. That was something that Nick was doing for a while, and we're gonna be resuming that at some point because that was
we could
fun.
also run some mock. We could also run some mock startup Dynasty drafts, or we could run a mock draft on Sleeper. That's something that we can absolutely look into. So yeah, that's not a problem. That's something that we can absolutely do. I know the guys, the fantasy footballers, do that type of stuff where they do mock drafts throughout. Actively like take a draft slot and they or sometimes it's like, oh, it's a 10-person mock draft and they each take a spot. Sometimes they only take one and they debate on what they want to do. Yeah. So we'll do that as well. We will absolutely do that as well. So,
yes, sir.
And I could do best ball. I could do best ball drafts as well. So,
Moon, what are your thoughts on Ridley, CEH, and CMC? Moon, what are your thoughts on Ridley, CEH, and CMC?
We could do that. I already quickly mentioned it. Hopefully,
and there's nothing we can do about it. You guys are just gonna have to deal. But yo, all right.
Yeah,
Ridley,
sorry guys.
CMC and CEH. CMC and CEH are falling right now in rankings. I mean, there are real concerns about the usage of CEH moving forward. We saw in last week's in this last playoff game, Jerick McKinnon got a ton of work over the course of the year.
Yeah, what was that all about?
Darrell Williams got a ton of work over the course of the year. Derek Gore asserted himself as a potential replacement for Darrell Williams next year. But I mean, CEH has either been not given enough work to really assert himself as anything other than a volume-based RB2, or he's just not been available at all. So CEH is falling, and CMC, he's falling, man. But I don't know what his ADP is right now. Do you?
Well, in redraft, it's still top 5. As far as Dynasty goes, I think he's still considered to be by many a top 20, if like a top 15, if not top 20 asset.
Because he's not old, man. I think he's 25.
No, he's only going to be 26. I think he's going to be 26 when the season starts. Yeah,
right.
He's not old. He's just had a ridiculous. You can call it unlucky, you can call it unfortunate, you could just call it the nature of the beast, whatever it is. He's had a string of injuries that have obviously limited him to 8 games the past 2 years total, something like that. We just got done, Moon. I don't know if you caught it, but I just mentioned briefly there's some level of thought that there's no such thing as being injury prone, but on the other hand, when you start accumulating soft tissue injuries, that's got to raise some red flags. McCaffrey in Dynasty is worth looking into from a buy perspective. The thing is, you're probably not going to be able to. Obviously, you're not paying top dollar for Christian McCaffrey. Likewise, the McCaffrey owner is not going to accept, most likely, a low ball offer, unless maybe they're in full tank mode and they just so happen to have Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to be able to acquire him. If you can, at a discount relative to someone like Christian McCaffrey, I do think it's worth that risk or that gamble, that roll of the dice. I think it's worth it. But we are probably down to, at best, like 2 more really good, again, at best, 2 more really good years of McCaffrey. That's probably what we're down to, because at that point, he'll be approaching his age 30 season, which is the nail in the coffin for running backs with heavy workloads. And he's got 2 significant injuries that he has to overcome to get back to, let's say, even say 70% of his elite level play, which still probably puts him at scoring over 300 fantasy points for the season. But I wouldn't expect him to do it.
I think it depends on
than
how he's
deployed.
If the coaching staff is smart with him
If they're smart.
If they give him 15 rushes a game and throw the ball to him 10 times, I think that's a problem. I think you need to be giving him at this point the Amir Abdullah treatment. And I'm calling it the Amir Abdullah treatment because Amir Abdullah was getting between 5 to 8 attempts on the ground and 8 to 12 targets through the air. He wasn't a full-time player, which is also what Cordell Patterson, not a full-time player, 5 to 10 rushes on the ground, 5 to 12 targets. Anywhere in McCaffrey, I think that's the usage that we should be expecting from him moving forward if the coaching staff is smart. If you see that, he's a buy for me because he's only 25. Yes, he's picked up a few injuries, but I like to see that receiving work. You pick up less bumps and bruises when you're doing mostly receiving work as opposed to mostly rushing work. At that point, Christian McCaffrey would be a buy for me because we've seen what he can do with the steady receiving workload. He won't have the ceiling of RB1 overall, but he will have a low-end RB1 ceiling if he gets that Amir Abdullah. He could
still be an RB1.
Right.
Yeah. With less than 10 carries a game, he could still do it.
Right. Yep.
The question is whether it actually happens.
I don't see CEH ever getting there. I don't.
As for Clyde, it feels like it's not going to happen. Looking back
to that draft, man, he was the one that was all hype about landing spot, and this is what I'm going to point back to when we talk about being early on these rookies in Dynasty. You need to be early before the draft. Combine helps, but before the draft, before you have the bias of knowing where they're going to land, we had. We would have had DeAndre Swift up ahead of CEH. We would have had Cam Akers up ahead of CEH. We would have Jonathan Taylor up firmly ahead of CEH if we would have stuck to that model instead of getting sucked into
first round
Brian
pick,
Westbrook comps.
Yeah.
Andy Reid back.
Right.
Mahomes back. Chiefs offense. Like DeAndre
which
Swift
were all
is the
fair narratives to buy into.
I don't know, man. I'm gonna be real wary of.
But doing that moving forward,
that narrative moving forward,
it's like
really
don't let that. Don't get sucked in.
Talent rises to the top. We saw it this year with with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was lots of times thought of to be at the top 4 wide receiver prospect in this class, and then he got drafted to the Detroit Lions, and then the Detroit Lions had Jared Goff at quarterback, and everybody was like, ugh.
In the 4th round of the NFL draft too. So the narrative it works both ways. It works.
But the talent, the cream rose to the top. The talent went out in the end, and I feel like we need to be cognizant of that moving into this season. I think that's something that a lot of younger Dynasty
it's an easy
owners,
trap to fall into.
Less experienced Dynasty owners fall into that trap, and just drafters in general. So.
As for Calvin Ridley, I think he is a buy. Again, you're not going to have to pay top dollar for Calvin Ridley at this point because there are question marks about his playing future in general. But the fact that his name is showing up in trade rumors tells me enough to feel fine about the fact that he is going to play. Where? We don't know. When? Hopefully week 1, 2022, but that's just speculation right now. But I believe that he will play. I believe he will play again. Will he be a top 5 wide receiver? He's probably going to have to, prove that all over again, depending on the landing spot and the fact that he missed the last, 8, 9, 10 games of this season. I think he has enough upside and potential from a dynasty perspective where I'm still interested in buying Calvin Ridley. If he ends up having to catch passes from Baker Mayfield or whoever Pittsburgh's quarterback is next year, or you get where I'm going with this, like landing spot is going to obviously play a bit of a role. You don't want to end up in a situation where it's like this offense stinks. But he's talented enough where I'm willing to pay a reduced amount if the Calvin Ridley owner has given up or isn't feeling good about Calvin Ridley anymore. I think he's a buy. Like, would I offer, like, if somebody said I'll give you a first round pick for him, if I have a pretty damn good team in Dynasty and maybe I have the 9th, 10th pick in the draft, I might take that risk on Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, I've come around to it. I was off of it just because I felt like you're paying up a lot to get a 27-year-old wide receiver who, when we last saw him, was performing like a wide receiver 4-5. Well, 3-4, not 4-5. And this was before he just decided to take a mental break from football, which, respect to him, we're talking about this from a fantasy football perspective. We're not talking about this from a mental health perspective.
From anything
fantasy
else,
football channel. So we have to discuss this through the lens of not having him available when you need him. That's a problem to me as a dynasty owner. I don't want assets like Will Fuller who just up and leave, can't trust you. It's not even an injury thing. It's just damn, that sucks. Again, not speaking mental health. He deserves to go and do that. He has every right to do that. From a fantasy perspective, it sucks. It means I can't really trust him on my team. I don't know if I want to, even in a class that's viewed as relatively weak, a late first can still net you a pretty good prospect. That said, we don't know if any of these wide receivers in this class have the ceiling that we saw from Calvin Ridley when he was playing opposite Julio Jones. But we also have close to zero confidence that he can get back to that. Can he find his way back to our wide receiver 2 value on a new team with a fresh start? Sure. But he's still a 27-year-old wide receiver in Dynasty when I could be going out and getting a 21-year-old wide receiver who I have a chance to be the approximation of what you're getting from Calvin Ridley moving forward, but you save 6 years, 5 years.
Right, and that's the decision that you ultimately have to make for yourself. Do I want to take a guy who is a proven commodity? Yes, he is now, there is time removed from that wide receiver 1 production.
He's a proven commodity, but, I mean, he's also an unreliable commodity. If it was just he was a proven commodity, sure.
Well, from the perspective of, like, yes, do we know? Can we sit here and definitively say he's going to play in 2022? No, we just don't have that information right now.
But we can't even say definitively that if he plays, he's going to return to wide receiver 2 value because the last time
there's
we
a
saw
lot
him,
of
he was barely a
factors
wide
that
receiver
are in.
3.
There are a lot of variables involved. It's a risk, like any move you make in fantasy football. It's a calculated risk that you're taking. This one's a little riskier. And so that's the decision you ultimately have to come to. If you have a top 5 pick, hang on to that. Don't trade it. But if you just won the chip and you've got the 112 and your team is looking pretty good and you want to roll the dice on adding Calvin Ridley, who would be your specific team's wide receiver 3 or at best anyway, or I'm just painting a very specific scenario. Yeah,
it's technically
fine with that.
Low cost if he can return to wide receiver 5 or whatever he was, but I prefer to spend my draft capital on sure bets, and that's my only issue with going out safer
because Ridley is sure. I mean, we're less sure about any guy who gets drafted.
Safer bets.
Safer because of age and potential to make more wiggle room for moves if it comes to that point.
Like Calvin Ridley, you would have to pay out more to get Calvin. I've brought this up before. You'd have to pay a lot more to get Calvin Ridley than you would to get Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson is 1 year older and a few months than Calvin Ridley. And prior to last season, when there were coaching staff issues, quarterback issues, Allen Robinson was a top 12 wide receiver 2 years straight. And he showed consistency, and before that, he had multiple high-end wide receiver 2 seasons and even wide receiver 1 seasons. Calvin Ridley did it once across from a Hall of Famer who was out of half the time. But what you would have to pay to get Allen Robinson versus what you'd have to pay to get Calvin Ridley, the difference is so large to me. I'd rather go get Allen Robinson than Calvin Ridley. So for me, it's an opportunity cost thing. Yes, in a vacuum, Calvin Ridley is worth the first. When you take into account the opportunity cost on some of these other guys in Dynasty, and you factor in the age of all these players and what you're going to be giving up draft capital wise to get all these players, I'd rather throw a low second to get a guy that's 1 year older.
Okay.
Who's just as consistent, shown just as much upside, if not more, over the course of a longer period of time. But yes, in a vacuum, late first is absolutely a value if Calvin Ridley can return to form and just return to the NFL. But I think that about covers it as far as
we went at, I think
wide receiver, tight end, running backs. We did not hit on the quarterbacks at all.
Nah, I mean, that's
a whole nother discussion, though.
It's a whole other discussion, and there's so much. There's probably even more moving parts, and trades are way more likely. Kind of like this proposal that Big Pun dropped in that, Daniel Jeremiah proposed Eagles getting Russell Wilson for all of their first rounders.
Yep.
Yeah, Big Pun. I mean, this is a fun conversation that can be had, but I think that's kind of where it ends. Russell Wilson does not elevate the Eagles to the Super Bowl. Like, if that's the end game, which obviously every team's end game is to win the Super Bowl, it would be fun for like a day, maybe, just if it happened. Like, Eagles got Russell Wilson, but this Eagles team is still very much a work in progress.
I mean, how excited would you be that he went from a run-heavy team on the West Coast to a run-heavy team on the East Coast, except the run-heavy team on the West Coast had two weapons that he could throw to through the air, whereas the run-heavy one on the East Coast, you only really have Devontae. Okay, you got Devontae Smith and Goddard, but run-first team, I mean, that doesn't excite me. I guess, yes, it'd be better for their winning percentages, but from a
they'd win a couple more games in the regular season.
From a fantasy perspective, I wouldn't be
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. The Eagles are multiple years and players away from getting back into contention, true contention. I know they made the playoffs, but true actual contention.
I feel like they'd be better served by using their draft capital
and the draft picks on young pieces. Get some young talent on the roster. On both sides of the ball. So, it's fun to have these conversations, and you throw in a 2023 second. Like, it's like the Eagles. If I felt like the Eagles had done a great job accumulating draft picks, and on top of that they had a great roster, sure, make the trade for the quarterback. But they don't have a great roster. It's a roster that really needs some work.
But is that the way you want to be building from the ground up? With an aging, technically, quarterback? No.
Generally speaking, if you can acquire an elite quarterback, you do it. But when you have an elite quarterback and I don't want to say literally, but very clearly not enough elsewhere, you might actually be setting yourself back a couple of years by making a move like that. So I say if I'm the Eagle, I used two of those picks most likely this year, and I maybe flip a 2022 first for a 2023 first, and increase my chances of finding that quarterback in 2023. Because I don't think there's a rookie that's worth taking in the first round this year. Increase your odds of maybe finding that guy in 2023. That's what I would do. Or ultimately, you could just spend all three picks on some combination of defense and probably offensive line.
And you can always run it back with Hurts. But
one more year, and go from there. That's that.
Theo, what's going on? Hey.
What's going on, Theo? Sorry,
no worries.
Yeah.
But hey, you should celebrate your holidays, bro.
Things are nuts this year,
Sorry,
man.
things
Have been
him.
crazy.
Yep.
Well, hopefully things are settling down.
Yep.
Let us know.
And William Risky, how you doing, man?
What's going on, William?
How about Javonte first round next year?
Yeah, man, I'm seeing that on an underdog redraft right now for early 2022 best balls. Javonte is firmly in the first round as far as his ADP.
It's too high for me.
It's a little.
What
we got to see.
They're gonna pair him with, if any.
We got to see what they do.
If we know he's gonna be the only back there, and it's gonna be him and Mike Boone. Then first round draft capital. That's warranted. Outside of that eventuality, you're paying up for him. You're paying way too much for him. I'm not willing to do that.
His current ADP, okay, he has fallen a bit. His current ADP on underdog, if you were playing early 2022 best ball, is 13.2. So he is a borderline first round pick. I don't think his ADP slides past the second round,
late second,
regardless of who they bring in. But if it is Melvin Gordon who re-ups, or let's say it is Sony Michel, who the Broncos
even factoring in like quarterback. If they get a
that might help.
Upgrade at quarterback. I mean, that's gonna
help.
Yeah,
could help, but
it's also gonna boost his ADP more. Is what my point was.
Sure, but if it's Sony Michel that's back there, the Aaron Jones of the situation where he gets 65% of the touches.
That's exactly who I was going to compare him to, so props.
But he's still, and guess what? Aaron Jones is now at this point of his career, or has been for the past few years, a year in, year out first round pick in redraft.
And he was still, this past year, he was RB13 and standard RB10 and half PPR. I know that by heart because I was literally just looking up info on him.
So he's still, he's still a guy who commands the first round pick in nearly all redraft formats.
Yeah. Deserves it too.
Deserves it.
Javonte, he finished with those rankings while missing 3 games.
Yeah. He's just an anchor. He's an efficient stud. Javonte looks real good, and I'm very high on Javonte. Everybody knows that at this point. If you watch this channel, if you were looking for start-sit help over the weekends, I was a big proponent of Javonte Williams. That is high. And I like Javonte, and I like him to continue to contribute, I can't go that high. I like him to deliver. I like him to continue to be effective, be a good asset in fantasy. A first-round pick is enticing, but it's hard to 100% get behind, because he's going over the likes of DeAndre Swift.
Well, a first round pick would make him he's going over Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins, and
he's going over Tyreek. He's going over right now.
Gibson.
Right now, today, he's going over Tyreek Hill. He's going over DeAndre Swift. He's going over Nick Chubb. He's going over Travis Kelce, Deebo Samuel, Stephon Diggs, Antonio Gibson. You said Cam Akers and Aaron Jones. Just talk about the comparison.
That's
Aaron
wild.
Jones, there's a lot of names there. I understand the hype on Javonte. I know people love Javonte. Welcome to the fan club. I'm Nick Payne. I'll be your president. That being said, those are a lot of really strong year in, year out names that we've grown accustomed to seeing produce high-end results week after week, year after year. That's tough. If he fell to the end of the second round and all those guys are gone, then hell yes. Yeah, I'm smashing the draft button on Javonte.
Yeah, I'm drafting Javonte over Ezekiel Elliott. I'm drafting Javonte
easy.
Over a lot of guys, but Javonte is being overdrafted right now.
Over Tyreek Hill, that's hard for me to do. Over
let's hope you got him in Dynasty.
Yeah, for real. But he's only going one spot below Jamar Chase.
Honestly, if you had him in Dynasty, now is the time to sell.
Javonte, you
sell when his value is highest. If he's viewed right now
and it is
as
high.
a first round pick,
Yeah.
in redraft leagues.
I hate to say
such
it.
a murky situation, and not talent, or not confused on his talent, or questioning his talent, questioning whether or not there's going to be another back in here, whether that's Melvin Gordon or a guy like Ronald Jones or Sonny Michel that's going to be a free agent, or just somebody they pick up in the draft. I think that could be a possibility, and while that might not keep him from being a running back one, if people are valuing him like an elite running back one, I think now's the time to sell.
Now's the time to get as much as you can for him.
Yeah, I
mean,
it
might hurt for a couple of years, but it might end up
this
paying.
Parallel isn't 100% on point, but there was a point in time last offseason where the hype machine on Miles Sanders got out of control. And there was like a 2 week to a month long period where people were talking about him being a top 6 running back. And that was the time to sell. And I'm not comparing Javonte Williams and projecting what happened with Miles Sanders this past year and projecting that for Javonte Williams. I'm not projecting that at all. I think Javonte Williams is the superior back in a better situation. But you got to sell when value is highest. I know Javonte Adams is a great Dynasty asset right now, but if I had him in Dynasty, bro, I'd be thinking about selling him right now. Mm-hmm. I just told you last stream, if Mark Andrews is on the block if you have him in Dynasty right now, based off of the fact that he's tight end 1. Look at what you can probably get for Mark Andrews right now, 26-year-old tight end 1. Probably get a lot.
Probably.
We talked about it last week. We could probably get Kyle Pitts plus from an owner that's not paying attention as much as he should be.
It's possible.
You could get Hawkinson plus from an owner that's not paying as much attention as he should.
So you could get a haul for Javonte Williams.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And it's probably a pretty good haul to feel good about. Yeah. This is the area. This is the window of opportunity to make it happen. Because I have to imagine Denver will bring somebody in. Because again, as much as we love Javonte, he has never, well, at least dating high school, that's a different story. But in college at UNC, he never carried the full load. Again, I love Javonte. I will fight for Javonte Williams, but the expectations have, I don't know if gotten out of control is an unfair term or phrase to use here, but it's kind of nuts to see him at 13.2 with an unsettled situation. It's very easy for Denver it should be easy for Denver to improve their offense this year. Shouldn't be that hard to upgrade over Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater. So the offense is definitely looking up. That's good for Javonte. If the quarterback situation improves, that's good for Javonte. But we don't know who their other running back is, and they will bring somebody in.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Likely they will split work. Could it be 65% in Javonte's favor? Sure. But just, we're talking about he's going to need to come through on some extreme efficiency if that's the scenario we're talking about.
He had a 7-point-something yards per carry in college. Very good yards per carry upon entering the NFL. I believe at one point in time he was the most explosive back in the NFL.
He makes explosive plays happen. He breaks tackles. We got all that. We got all that. Yeah.
But I mean, would you be drafting Elijah Mitchell over him? Would you draft Elijah Mitchell over Javonte Williams, or would you draft Javonte Williams first? Because Elijah Mitchell, second year back, no one's talking about workload concerns with him. Nobody's talking about them bringing in another running back with him.
Yeah, I think I would take Javonte over Elijah Mitchell because
the only running back that he has to compete with is Deebo Samuel. I mean,
that's damn good competition. Well, let's see what happens with. Does Trey Sermon have some type of bounce back and I'm not saying fantasy relevance, but just being able to contribute as a team.
Yeah, but I mean, I would put more money on Javonte Williams getting a running mate over Elijah Mitchell getting a running mate. I don't think Elijah Mitchell gets a running mate. I think Elijah Mitchell's
running mate is going to be Trey Lance. That's going to be the running mate.
Right, and Deebo Samuel. But he's not. Yeah. There's not going to be another running back in that offense taking work away from him. That's my point.
As of right now, probably not.
There's a pretty good chance that
probably
there's somebody else in Denver taking work away from Javonte Williams. Again, if Javonte Williams is getting 80% of the work, I got no problems with drafting him in the first round.
Then strap in. Let's go.
But if
Let's
he's
ride.
45 to 55% of the work.
He'll get more than 50%, but will he get more than 65%? I don't know.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about extreme efficiency is going to be needed, which can be done, but it's more of a roll of the dice. So yeah, Dynasty. Sometimes this game it feels like painful to play. It's like sell this dude at its highest point when you couldn't feel better about him, and buy the dude whose value is so low there's no way you can feel good about him. But sometimes that's the game to play.
Far. I mean,
yes, I'm being a little extreme,
but you buy low within reason.
I'm being a little facetious.
We're not telling everybody to go out and buy low on Ronald Jones right now because his value's low.
Everybody buy Trey Sermon. The bounce back is coming. No. I'm not advocating for that. No, it's just like it's tough sometimes. You get these guys who you probably end up liking. They're good. They're on your team, but then sometimes it's like these are the calculated risks that sometimes make sense when it comes to building a dynasty roster. That's the science. Doesn't always work out, but you play your odds. Eventually, you win.
If you make the smart moves more often than not, your fantasy team will benefit. Because even though you might not have Javonte Williams in 3 years,
you might have
somebody that approximates what Javonte Williams is doing with the draft capital that you would have picked up. The guy's younger,
right? To get another
capital guy. Or other pieces along with it because you sold high. And it's not that you want to see the other person fail with Javonte. I mean, you don't want Javonte to fail. You don't want to.
Right. But you're just trying to maximize your own opportunities.
Exactly. Yes.
That's the name of the game, and that's how we play.
But I think we are at the bottom of the chat.
Yeah, I think that about does it for tonight. John's feeling a little under the weather anyway. We were having some technical issues a little earlier in the stream. So if you stuck with us to this point, appreciate you guys hanging with us.
Yeah, we're going to try to get those worked out by, next Saturday, 2 p.m.
Yeah, what's that first game? Or what time is that first game? It's the Titans and the Bengals, right?
It's early.
It's another 4:30 Eastern start, something like that. So we will be on 2 p.m. A little bit. 4:30.
Yep.
Is that what it is?
Yep. So we'll be back on 2 p.m.
2 p.m. Eastern on Saturday.
Nothing on Sunday.
Games. No live stream Sunday, but we'll have happy to talk Dynasty. Happy to talk the playoff games if anybody cares. Any other goings on in the NFL that may happen between now and then. Everything's on the table, not just today, not just Sunday, but for the whole offseason. A little bit more concentrated focus on Dynasty with each passing day and week.
Yep.
You can
keep an eye out for the Kyren Williams draft profile video that's coming out tomorrow.
Couple more profiles.
Wilson's going to be done pretty soon. We're going to start rolling into these wide receivers. Now that we've covered some of these running backs here. And then tight ends are next after that, and quarterbacks as well.
Quarterbacks will come into play eventually.
Superflex, real deal. And you know what I was thinking about today? I can't wait until the draft, because the first time that we live streamed was draft coverage.
Was the draft,
yeah. And I had fun with that, and I'm looking forward to doing that again.
We can do that.
Maybe we can do something like that for the combine too. If we can fit it into our schedule. I don't know, something like that.
Everything's on the table.
Yep.
Everything's on the table. We'll obviously keep everybody informed and up to date on what we're working on. We're rolling out our members only content. If that's anything that you might be interested in, obviously keep an eye out for that. get a notification either from the channel or the next time you check us out. There will be some options there as well if that interests you. That's going to do it for us tonight, though. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks for everybody sticking with us through the technical issues. We'll work on resolving that. Work on resolving that for the next stream. But yeah, keep it locked with us for Dynasty content all off season long. Draft coverage will be coming up shortly. And if anybody cares about any other general topics, obviously just hit us up, let us know, drop a comment on a video somewhere. If there's anything specific you want to see covered, let us know. We'll do what we can to make that happen for you. But till then, everybody have a great week. Have a good rest of your evening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully we'll.
Thanks for joining us, everybody that joined us. Thanks for everybody in the threw a question in the chat. Much love. Have a great week.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see y'all Saturday.
Peace, y'all.